So now we also learn about those nested folders to construct nested, more complex paths, or as an alternative to having a file of the same name. But maybe you also remember that last use case down there with the square brackets. This can be used to have a dynamic path with a dynamic path segment. And that's another key feature Next.js offers to us. Let's say here in this very simple dummy application we are working on, in our portfolio folder, we don't just want to have the root path for /portfolio and the list path, but we also have different portfolio items, different portfolio projects, let's say. And those projects might have different IDs or slugs, and we want to load the different data in the same kind of component for those different slugs or IDs. That's exactly where we would create such a dynamic route component. And here, the naming pattern is always exactly the same. You use square brackets, and then of course still .js because it's still a JavaScript file. And inside of the square brackets, any identifier of your choice. So this is up to you. It doesn't have to be ID. It just very often will be some kind of ID. But that's up to you. It could, for example, be project ID, just to really emphasize that this can be any term you want. The square brackets matter though, because those tell Next.js that here we don't want to have /portfolio/project ID, but that instead this is a placeholder for any kind of value, which we then will have access to in the component to load different kinds of data. But that will be the next step. So therefore, let's now save this. And even though this might look strange, this is a perfectly valid file name. And now in here, we can create a new function, the portfolio project page function maybe, where we return another div where we say the portfolio project page. And then just as before, we simply export this page component. Now, how can we load this component or this page? Well, it's a placeholder, as I said, and it's in the portfolio folder. Hence, what we can do is we can enter portfolio/ and then any value of your choice. For example, something. And you see the portfolio project page. Also, if we use /1 instead of /something or /hello. So whatever value we enter here, this is valid because here we defined that we want to accept any value, that we just have a placeholder here. And now we're filling in a concrete value for that placeholder. Please also notice though that /list still loads the list page, since Next.js is smart and checks your other files as well. So if it sees that a value could be treated as a value for this placeholder, it also checks if you maybe have a more concrete file for that exact value. So for /list after /portfolio, it sees that there is a list file in the portfolio folder and it prioritizes that file over this dynamic file. And that's a great behavior because it means that you can have static predefined route page files next to dynamic ones like this one. But what can we now do with that file? It's a placeholder, but what's the real benefit we get by using such a placeholder? As I said, a common scenario for using such a dynamic page would be that you have the same kind of page that should be loaded for different pieces of data, different products in a shop or different blog posts in a blog, or like in this case, different projects we want to show on our portfolio page, for example. So therefore now inside of this page component, we typically now want to use the concrete value that was entered, so the concrete project ID here, and then probably reach out to some database or something like this, fetch data from there, and then use that concrete data in this component to bring that data to the screen.